People who have came close to dying, what were your last thoughts? I need to throw up again. Even though my stomach's empty? Don't worry, it ended up not being enough to kill me, but it did give me pharmacophobia. I should cut that meatball in half. Your shoe isn't tied. I said that to my dad before promptly falling down a 20-foot cliff into the underbrush. Broken arm, fractured skull, ruptured kidney. Woke up 2 weeks later to my dad saying thanks for letting him know his shoe wasn't tied as he could have tripped. Weirdly calmed. Mind went quiet. Everything slowed right the frick down. Afterwards though, mind screamed. FWIW car accident 100 phone 270 degree spin in front of an 18-wheeler, across 2 lanes, down the embankment, and slid between 2 concrete drainage pipes. Could have been hit by the truck. Could have rolled. Could have hit the pipes which would have crushed into me. I was in a fight and I didn't know I was stabbed in the liver and the lung. I walked away with my friend and collapsed in an alley. I remember bleeding out with calming waves of euphoria washing over me and I thought, I've lived enough, I'm okay with this. I blacked out and woke up in the back of an ambulance with waves of immense pain assaulting my body. Dying isn't awful, surviving is awful. I'm so tired. I wish these doctors would let me sleep, since a couple people have asked. I was 15. I had an undiagnosed chronic disorder that caused my blood pressure to drop. All my blood vessels collapsed, and I went into shock. They ended up being able to put in a line in my femoral artery. I was out for this, and stabilize me. After I was diagnosed and put on the correct medication, recovery was swift. Also, stop giving me awards. I mean, I appreciate that people resonate with it, but consider donating those couple bucks instead. https://florida.com/ this charity helps pay legal fines of people in Florida so they can regain their constitutional right to vote. Everything is so slow, and I can't move. Anaphylactic shock right before losing consciousness. I was in the process of being electrocuted, having been working all day atop a scissors lift. The electricians had left a 277 volt line live, and while I was standing and reaching, while running the last low voltage run of the job, I contacted their line. I saw the white light at the end of the tunnel. All I knew was throbbing and 60 cycle noise and the white light. My last thought was, I wonder if I can tell my knees to unlock. Obviously they did, since I'm here typing this. Severe electrical burns, still here living the life. As I was getting the hemorrhage, I remember thinking how embarrassing it would be to die at a Renaissance fair. It was the day before my 29th birthday, so I also remember being disappointed I wasn't going to make it to 30. Edit 2. Thank you all for the responses. It seems like choking at a Renaissance fair is actually pretty common. If anyone knows a cigar salesman that was working at Scarborough Fair 6 or so years ago, give him my thanks for saving me life. Crap, wasn't the car that hit me white? As I'm looking down at a car underneath me, I'd been hit hard enough I bounced up over the car that hit me and had enough air time to clear the second one. Props to the driver of the third vehicle, he must have stood on the damn brakes the moment he saw me, because he brought the cement truck to a stop before it got to me. Second time I was hit by a car as a pedestrian. I'm now much more careful crossing streets. Not that it's helped much, I seem to have a car magnet in my ass. Well, frick. Car accident. I thought I was having a drug overdose. I just remember thinking how disappointed my mum was going to be with me. My throat feels weird, my gums are itchy and blackness like a deep sleep. Woke up a bit later, found out I was allergic to crab the hard way. I had the worst strain of mono currently known, strep throat, double ear infection, upper respiratory flu, lower respiratory flu, a sinus infection, and pink eye. At the same time, they started testing me for a brain tumor before they knew what was wrong in the ear. My vision started fading, and I couldn't hear, and the only thing I could think about was that I was going to ruin my parents' siblings, friends, and girlfriends' lives by dying so young and sudden. I didn't want to cause that kind of emotional pain to my loved ones. I thought I wasn't going to be able to say goodbye. I was so dehydrated that my organs were starting to shut down. Had I waited another day to go to the ER, I would have died from total organ failure. My body was making so many white blood cells that my counts were higher than some of the nurses and doctors had ever seen in their professional career. I was administered 3 separate sacks, you could call it, of fluids. They were keeping me alive at the time. They gave me a huge amount of prednisone. Over 200 milligram doses. I was high as a kite for a week. I don't remember much from that week, but somehow I got home with my parents, lived on smoothies, and slept a lot. I even managed to play Apex and win matches, and I don't even remember doing it. They forced me to drink 2 to 3 liters of water a day. I discharged a lot of phlegm. The week passed, and the prednisone wiped out my flu and helped my body fight off my mono symptoms. But steroids can make bacterial infections like strep, ear infections, and pink eye feel worse. I couldn't speak for 2 weeks. After the steroids, I was put on an extremely powerful antibiotic and had to stay home for another 3 to 4 days because it completely wiped out the good bacteria in my body. After 3 weeks from visiting the ER, I went back to college. 5 weeks later I finished the semester with a 3.4. Pretty freaking proud of myself. God, why can't I breathe right now? Just wish I could breathe. Oh, I'm getting tired. Anaphylactic shock each time. I remember having a piece of food lodged into my throat at a young age. I was standing there thinking, well, this is it, and I just accepted it. I really don't understand it because I'm terrified of death, so I don't get how I just accepted it, but yeah. I was 16 years old. I had my lower right wisdom tooth come in, and it broke the tooth next to it. That caused an abscess, which led to an infection in my jawbone. I was taken to the ER by my mother because she thought I had some sort of lockjaw because I couldn't open my mouth. It was so swollen. The doctor told her that I couldn't be treated there, and so I was ambulanced to another hospital an hour away. I remember slipping in and out consciousness, getting prepped for the surgery, and having my dad there. The last thing I remember thinking was that I didn't want to go yet. I would make so many people devastated if I died. I remember crying before, and my dad just calmed me down and told me he loved me. I recovered in the hospital for a month, got a visit from my then boyfriend, now husband, missed high school finals of that year, and was discharged on Christmas Eve. What the fuck? Ow. Son of a bitch. Ah fuck, don't run me over. Me being run over by a car while on my motorcycle. I never got to have my own cat. I was 6 years old, in the hospital with mono and strep, and being administered antibiotics that I was having a severe and violent allergic reaction to. Everything was slow and fading, and honestly I don't know how I'm still alive. Luck, I guess. I got my cat though. I thought about how I didn't buy enough pizzas from my favorite pizza place. It's pretty good, but thinking about pizza when you think you're dying is pretty depressing in retrospect. They will never find me. Almost drowned in Hawaii in a riptide and no one noticed. I was 10. Thankfully I was a very strong swimmer and managed to swim out of it, but I was quite a ways out. The beach was very narrow, close in with rocks on each side, so I basically had to get pitted by a huge wave at the end to get through the last 20 yards. Crawled up on the beach, literally exhausted. Got yelled at for staying out too long. Oh crap, my sister had to see me drown. I felt pretty calm about it though. I was stabbed in the neck by someone robbing my house. I totally thought I was going to die. I hate myself, but I begged the guy who stabbed me to stay because I didn't want to die alone. He said sorry and walked away. That freaking broke my heart. Thankfully he called 911 for me. That's it. As I looked at the surface of the water I couldn't reach. My heart stopped beating for 7 seconds while I was eating dinner in my hospital bed waiting to be discharged. I realized I was going to pass out and put my arm across my plate so I wouldn't fall face first into it. All I could think of was, this is gonna make a mess. Glad they took their time with the paperwork. Ended up walking out of there 7 days later with a pacemaker at the age of 46. I pictured my husband coming home to an empty house and I desperately hoped people would reach out and make sure he was okay. Couldn't stand the thought of him being alone. Had a stroke last year and was taken to the ER by my brother. The last thing I remember was asking him to take a picture of me with his phone as I must look terrible. After I was admitted, I didn't remember anything other than dreams until late October, and days after I was admitted, when everything was a blank, they induced a coma so that my brain swelling would go down, and I was critical, so I presume I was pretty close to dying then. I tried to commit via sleeping pills. My last thoughts were just pure relief, because either I'd finally get the help I needed, or the pain would end forever. Funny, for lack of a better word, story. When I was 10, my family went to Florida on vacation with some other extended family. There was a plan where my parents went back home in May, a few days before my brother and I, so we could stay longer with my aunt and cousins. It was my first time traveling with just my older brother and my second time on a plane, the first being the trip there. Coming into Logan Airport, our airplane started to fall out of the sky. Quite literally. Apparently it only happened for about 3 to 5 seconds, but the pressure made the oxygen masks fall from the ceiling. I'd seen enough movies at that point to know that basically meant we were going to die. I was for sure crying and freaking out like everyone else on the aircraft. For sure the most frightening experience of my life, bar none. But I distinctly remember thinking, I'm never going to get to finish my Age of Empires 2 campaign. So, a video game was ostensibly my last thought. A little over 10 years ago I had the Widowmaker heart attack. I spent the first day in the hospital with a balloon pump assisting my heart to help me stay alive until they could perform the surgery the next day. They told my wife that my chances of surviving were only about 20%. I had the priest in, family, the whole 9 yards. In the morning, as they wheeled me into the operating room, I was doing the Monty Python bit and get the machine that goes ping in case the administrator comes by with the surgical nurse, who was also a MP fan. The look on the surgeon's face was priceless, and I was chuckling as I went under. My last thoughts were fair. We got this. The surgeon later told me that I was the only patient in his entire career that came into his operating room laughing, but that my attitude may have been a large factor in my survival. Nearly was run over in a town square when a car decided to go through it instead of around it and went onto the sidewalk. First and only thing to come out of my mouth to my friend next to me before we dove out of the way, well that's not good. Was run over by a bus last year. My thought when I went under the tires was, but it's a Wednesday. Frick, am I having a heart attack? There's no way, I'm not thin enough for that. My thoughts as my heart went into palpitations due to severe electrolyte imbalance BC of anorexia. Spoiler alert, I was thin enough. The doctor told me I could have dropped dead at any moment. Took me a while for recovery to click and several hospitalizations, but 6 years later I'm doing pretty good for myself. Who is holding me underwater? I almost passed out. I didn't even know the kid. I tried to commit suicide via drowning in a public pool. I was 8 and short for my age, so I purposely went to the deep end. My last thoughts were, at least daddy won't see this, and the rest of my family never pays attention to me, so I'm coming to heaven, God. The lifeguard rescued me just before I passed out, and my mother yelled at me for going to the deep end, saying I should have known better and told to sit on the grass for the rest of the day. I was dealing with being sexually abused by her father and I just wanted it to finally end. Thank you for watching the video. Tell us your stories in the comments below. See you soon.